Hi, my name is Rowan. I am the author of the book, The Art of Relational Leadership, and I want to speak to you about the 7 habits of a relational leader. One thing you must understand, being a leader is not easy. It's sometimes a very lonely job. You're on your own, you're trying to make things work, you're trying to make your team gel, you're trying to get them to achieve objectives. You have the shareholders on your case every 5 minutes about the bottom line, about the return on the investment, and the team is expected to achieve these objectives and make this magic and make it work. But you are the one that ends up being responsible. Now, if we look at a team, it's impossible. You can't do everything on your own. You need the team. And in order to get the team to then perform and achieve the objectives, you need to build relationships. You need to build relationships with your team that ultimately lead to their trusting you as the leader, them having confidence in you as the leader, and them respecting your decisions and you as the leader. So how do we do this? I want to look at 7 habits that you can cultivate to become a relational leader and to ensure that you build these trust relationships with your team. The first one to look at is to remember it's not always about you, the leader. As I mentioned earlier, the team needs to achieve the objectives. You cannot achieve them on your own. You are only as successful as your team is. So if your team is not performing, if they're demotivated, then you're not going to achieve the objectives. And if you are the focus of attention, if you're making it all about you and about your needs, your team is not going to function properly. You need to be aware of the well-being of your team, and you need to look out for them. You need to have their backs, and they will then trust you, and they will achieve the objectives. They will put in the effort because they want to do it. Another very important part about building relationships, and a good habit for a relational leader to have, is not to take sides. When you end up in conflict situations, or there's indecision, or there's some other problem, that there are two sides to the story, you need to remain neutral. The minute you start taking sides and it appears as if you are favoring one party over the other, the conflict is going to worsen, and their trust in you as the leader, especially if you're not taking their side, is going to diminish, because they're going to feel that you cannot stick to your ground, you cannot be neutral, and you cannot deal with the team as a whole. So you have to remain neutral. You need to communicate like you care. What I mean by that is, you need to be sincere in your communication. We throw communication around loosely every day. But the problem is that we do not communicate properly. And I don't mean WhatsApps and emails and Facebook. Social media is not communicating. You need to communicate with these people on a face-to-face basis. Yes, in the beginning it's going to be incredibly awkward because it's going to be a strange phenomenon. But if you're sincere about it and you show them that you mean it, then they will accept that communication and they will trust you. Something I see a lot with managers, not leaders, is taking credit for somebody else's work. You need to give constant praise and credit. You need to appreciate the contribution that somebody makes. You cannot take somebody's idea and sell it as your own idea. They are going to become antagonistic towards you. They're not going to trust you. I know I'm speaking about this. Has happened to me many times in business. You clam up eventually and you don't trust the person and you don't want to give them any information. So as a leader, if somebody makes a suggestion, remember, it doesn't have to be about you. And if you want your team to trust you and believe in you, if somebody makes a suggestion, give them the mention. You don't have to make a big deal about it. But if somebody gave you a good idea and you pass the idea on in the line of authority when you're speaking to your leaders, and they say, oh, that was a great idea, then you need to say, so-and-so, John, Susie, whoever, gave the idea, so that they can get the credit, so that they get the recognition. And in that way, they will know that you are there for their well-being, you're looking out for them, and they will trust you more. A very important thing. We learn from a young age that we are not allowed to make mistakes. When you're a baby, if you do something, no, don't touch that, don't do this, don't watch it, hey, no, you're going to burn yourself, you're going to... When we get to school, we get taught we are not allowed to fail. Because if you fail a subject, or you fail a grade, and you don't get promoted to another grade, then there's something wrong with you, and there's a stigma attached to it. So we grow up in life, and we get to adulthood, and we get into business with this idea and this concept that we are not allowed to make mistakes, we're not allowed to fail. But if you don't make mistakes, how else are you going to learn? How are you going to gain the experience? So you need to allow for mistakes. You need to show empathy. If somebody does something wrong, then you need to allow them to accept it, and you need to guide them and mentor them to repairing it. I think of one example many years ago when I worked for a retail organization in the days before mobile phones and computers and laptops and internet. We used to do manual stock counts, and we used to have these little stock count books, and they were numerically numbered, and each number had to be accounted for, so you checked them and double checked them and triple checked them, and then you handed them out, they did it, and when you finished you took them back and you checked it and double checked it and triple checked it to make sure everyone was there, that nothing was missing, so that your stock count reflected an accurate stock level. And in this one particular instance, we used casual workers to help with the stock take. We spent about 2.5 hours trying to find a missing ticket. And we went back and we repacked and we did everything. And there was absolutely no way that we could find out what happened to that ticket. I was starting to doubt myself and think that maybe I didn't check properly, maybe I missed that number. And eventually one of the casuals comes forward and says, she ate the ticket. I thought, what? Why did you eat the ticket? She made a mistake on the ticket and she was scared she was going to get into trouble, so she ate the ticket. That's what happens when you don't allow people to make mistakes. They have this absolute fear of getting into trouble if they make a simple mistake, and they try and hide it and they try and cover it up. If you allow for it and you're open and there's a trusting relationship in your team, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to know they can make mistakes. They're going to know that you're going to help them and you're going to accept them. You have to pay it forward as a leader. Your main function as a leader is to develop other leaders. How do you do that? Become a mentor. Pay it forward. So become a mentor for somebody, for an aspiring leader, for somebody that you've identified in your team that has the potential to be a leader, and use delegation, other techniques, whatever there is that's available to you, but mentor them, guide them, help them to develop the skill as a leader. The last point that I want to touch on is you don't lead to be liked. So in other words, it's about the team's performance. It's about the team as a whole doing well. Not about you winning a popularity contest or being the best person. So sometimes you even have to apply discipline in this event to make sure that the team does everything they do. So the big thing to remember, a relational leader is not there for fame and fortune and for approval or recognition. The relational leader is there to develop solid relationships in the team that allow the team to trust you as a leader and have confidence in you, to know that you will take them to the end goal and you will see them through to the end, and that you will have their backs and you will protect them and make sure that they can carry on and do their job without having to look over their shoulder every 5 minutes. Remember, apply these 7 habits and become a relational leader and lead your team to glory.